I want to begin by saying that today's video contains a sensitive topic, so viewer discretion is highly advised. This is the tragic medical case of Jesica Santillan, the surgery mix-up that shouldn't have happened. Hardest stories often do, with hope sitting quietly in the room, trying its best to outshine fear. A teenage girl lies in a hospital bed, her parents nearby, holding on to the fragile belief that everything is finally going to be okay. They've traveled far, trusted deeply, and waited longer than any family ever should for a second chance at life. There's nervous laughter, the kind people use when they're scared but don't want to say it out loud. You can almost hear someone saying, "After this, things will get better," because that's what you say when you need to believe it. But sometimes, in the cruelest twist, the thing meant to save a life becomes the very thing that takes it away. Jesica Santillan was just 17 years old, a girl with a bright smile and a quiet strength that didn't demand attention, but earned it anyway. She had moved from Mexico to the United States with her family, chasing the same dream millions of others have chased. A better life, more opportunities, and a future that felt just a little more secure. Her family settled in North Carolina, building a life piece by piece, holding on to each other through the challenges that come with starting over. Jesica was known for being kind, thoughtful, and resilient in ways that people often don't notice until they really matter. She loved simple things like spending time with her family and imagining what her future could look like. That future, however, became uncertain when her health began to fail in ways no one could ignore. Jesica had a rare and severe heart and lung condition that made everyday life a quiet battle. Breathing wasn't something she could take for granted, and her heart struggled to keep up with the demands of her growing body. Doctors eventually determined that her only real chance at survival was a transplant, a complex and high-risk procedure that would replace both her heart and lungs. It was the kind of diagnosis that stops a family in its tracks, forcing them to process fear, hope, and uncertainty all at once. Still, they held on to optimism because when the alternative is unthinkable, hope becomes the only option. And so they placed their trust in the medical system, believing that they were in the best hands possible. The opportunity for a transplant came at Duke University Hospital, a respected medical institution known for its expertise. For Jesica and her family, this felt like a miracle finally arriving after a long wait. The surgery would be complicated, but the doctors were experienced, and the hospital had a strong reputation. There were risks, of course, but those risks were weighed against the certainty of what would happen without the transplant. It was a chance, and sometimes a chance is all you need to move forward. Her family agreed, trusting that everything that could be done would be done correctly. The day of the surgery was filled with a strange mix of tension and cautious optimism. Medical staff moved efficiently, preparing for the delicate procedure that would take hours to complete. Jesica was taken into the operating room, and her family was left to wait, counting the minutes and trying not to imagine the worst. Surgeries like this are always complex, requiring coordination, precision, and absolute attention to detail. Every step matters, every decision carries weight, and there is no room for error, or at least there isn't supposed to be. The transplant surgery itself was completed, but something was terribly wrong almost immediately afterward. Jesica's body began to show signs that it was rejecting the new organs, reacting in a way that raised alarm among the medical team. At first, it might have seemed like a complication, one of the many risks that come with such a major procedure. But as the situation unfolded, the truth became impossible to ignore. The organs she had received were not compatible with her blood type. It was a mistake that should never have happened, one that cut through the room like a sudden, deafening silence. Somewhere in the process, a critical check had failed, and the consequences were now unfolding in real time. Blood type compatibility is one of the most basic and essential factors in any transplant, something that is checked and double-checked to prevent exactly this kind of tragedy. Yet somehow, despite the protocols and safeguards, the wrong organs had been used. It's the kind of error that leaves people asking how over and over again because there is no answer that feels sufficient. For Jesica, the damage had already begun, her body fighting against something it could not accept. For her family, the nightmare they never imagined was just beginning. When the medical team realized what had happened, the situation turned into a desperate race against time. The only possible course of action was to attempt another transplant to find compatible organs and perform a second surgery before it was too late. It was a long shot, the kind of plan that exists because there is no other option. Jesica was placed on life support, her body struggling to hold on as doctors worked urgently to correct the mistake. The urgency in the hospital was palpable, every second carrying more weight than the last. It was no longer about a hopeful recovery, it was about survival in the most immediate sense. Miraculously, a second set of organs became available, and preparations for another transplant began almost immediately. The medical team moved quickly, knowing that time was slipping away. Jesica was taken back into surgery, her body already weakened from the first procedure and the complications that followed. Her family waited once again, this time with a different kind of fear, one that had already been proven justified. They had trusted the system once, and now they were being asked to trust it again under unimaginable circumstances. It's the kind of situation that no one is ever prepared for. The second transplant surgery was technically successful, but Jesica's condition remained critical. Her body had endured immense trauma, and the damage from the initial mistake could not simply be undone. Complications continued to arise, affecting multiple organs and systems. She remained on life support, her chances of recovery growing slimmer with each passing hour. Doctors worked tirelessly, doing everything they could, but the reality was becoming increasingly clear. Sometimes even the most determined efforts cannot reverse what has already been set in motion. Jesica's family stayed by her side, holding on to hope even as it became more fragile. They spoke to her, held her hand, and tried to be strong in a situation that would break almost anyone. The emotional weight of what they were experiencing is difficult to fully grasp, a mix of grief, anger, confusion, and love all tangled together. They had come to the hospital seeking a cure, a second chance, and instead found themselves facing an outcome that felt both sudden and inevitable. It's the kind of pain that doesn't follow a clear path, hitting in waves that don't give you time to catch your breath. And yet they remained there, because that's what families do. As Jesica's condition continued to deteriorate, the medical team had to confront the reality that there was little more they could do. Despite the second transplant and all the interventions that followed, her body was shutting down. The damage was too severe, the complications too overwhelming. At some point, the focus shifted from trying to save her life to ensuring that she was not in pain. It's a transition that carries a quiet, devastating finality, one that no one ever wants to reach. For her family, it meant preparing for a goodbye they were never ready to say. Jesica Santillan passed away on February 22, 2003, surrounded by her family. She was just 17 years old, a life full of potential, cut short by a mistake that should never have occurred. The news spread quickly, drawing attention from across the country and beyond. People were shocked, saddened, and searching for answers that could make sense of what had happened. It became more than just a personal tragedy. It became a public one, raising questions about medical safety and accountability. But at its core, it remained the story of a girl and her family, and the loss they would carry forever. In the days that followed, Duke University Hospital issued apologies, acknowledging the error and expressing regret for the devastating outcome. Investigations were launched to understand how such a fundamental mistake could occur in a system designed to prevent it. Policies were reviewed, procedures were scrutinized, and changes were implemented to reduce the risk of similar incidents in the future. These steps were necessary, important even, but they could not undo what had already happened. For Jesica's family, no policy change or public statement could replace what they had lost. Accountability, while essential, does not erase grief. There was a settlement reached following Jesica Santillan's death. Duke University Health System agreed to a financial settlement with her family, although the exact amount was never publicly disclosed. The hospital accepted responsibility for the transplant error, and the case was resolved without going to a prolonged trial. In addition to the settlement, Duke also covered the costs associated with Jesica's medical care and funeral expenses. Representatives for the family emphasized that while the settlement acknowledged the mistake, no amount of money could ever replace Jesica or ease the pain of losing her. The agreement brought a legal conclusion to the case, but for her family, the emotional impact remained far beyond anything a settlement could address. The loss was immeasurable, a void that could never truly be filled. They had come seeking hope and left with a grief that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Their strength in the face of such a tragedy was both remarkable and deeply moving, a testament to the love they had for Jesica. They spoke about her, remembered her, and ensured that her story would not be forgotten. In doing so, they honored her life in the only way they could. It's a reminder that even in the darkest moments, love remains. The story of Jesica Santillan is not just about a medical error, though that is certainly a central part of it. It is about a young girl who dreamed of a future, a family who believed in that future, and a series of events that took it away. It is about trust, hope, and the fragility of both when things go wrong. It is about the people who tried to help, the mistake that changed everything, and the aftermath that followed. And perhaps most importantly, it is about remembering the person at the center of it all. Because behind every headline and every discussion, there was Jesica, and she deserved so much more. In the end, this is a story that stays with you, not because of the details alone, but because of what it represents. It reminds us how precious life is, how quickly it can change, and how deeply it can affect those around us. It asks difficult questions without offering easy answers, leaving space for reflection and empathy. And while it is undeniably tragic, it is also a story that calls for compassion, for understanding, and for a commitment to doing better. Jesica Santillan's life, though short, left a lasting impact, one that continues to resonate long after her passing.